Let's imagine that the user wants to view a specific appointment. Well, we might have some kind of route for appointment slash and then the ID of the appointment to display. So I will set that up as a wildcard. When that hash is requested, we're going to trigger the show appointment method. Let's add that now. Now, this needs to accept the ID of the appointment. So I'll say appointment ID. And now, just to make sure it's working, we're going to console.log that. So let's view this in the browser. And now I will do appointment/10. And that would mean I want to grab the appointment from the database that has an ID of 10. So it seems to be working. Rather than setting up the model in the view or the collection or doing anything like that within here, we want to keep these as simple as possible. You can do a little bit if you need to, but in general, it's better to trigger an event. So let's see how we might do that. Well, why don't we set up a global custom events tool? So I'll give you an example. Let's write var vent. This is kind of a common practice. Rather than event, you call it vent. And we're going to do _.extend, a simple object with Backbone.events. So all we're going to do is create a new object, and we want to give it access to all of the flexibility that comes through Backbone.events. So if I log vent and I refresh the page, now you'll see that we have extended that empty object. So now we have access to things like on and off and trigger. So it's essentially a pub submodel that we got for our object with one line of code. Now, when we trigger the show appointment method, all I'm going to do is say vent.trigger, and we're going to give this any kind of name we want. You should follow a system, but if I wanted to trigger what's up, that would work fine. All I would need to do is, from some view, listen for on what's up. But obviously, that's not the best name. Why don't we instead say appointment show? Now, if we need to pass anything through when we call trigger, we can send it through as a second parameter. So I will send through appointment ID. So now when anyone triggers show appointment, the only thing we do in this case is we just make an announcement and say, hey, somebody wants to view an appointment. Here's the ID. Do whatever you want with it. Then from that point, maybe we will have it up here. We'll say app.views, and we really don't have much here. So I'll just say appointment view equals backbone.view.extend. And now within the initialize method, we're going to listen for that. So I will say vent.on appointment show. Then what do I want to call? Well, we'll just say show appointment. And I'll make sure I set the context as I always do. So now if I run this show appointment, now we have this method directly within the view that can be responsible for that. Or you may not want it to be specifically on the appointment view. Maybe you want it to be on maybe a collection view, on the appointments view. Or maybe you have some kind of higher level app view that's responsible for broader things across the page. I don't know. It really just depends on the project. I'm going to stick with appointment view for now, and then I will console.log showing the appointment. All right, so let's try this out and see if we're doing it correctly. I want to make sure before I do anything that we create a new instance of app.views.appointment. And I've been calling this appointment view. Sorry about that. App.views.appointment. So now we create a new instance of our view. We're not really doing anything with it just yet, but that will make sure that we fire the initialize method and we begin listening for the appointment:show event on the vent object. When this event is triggered, all we're going to do is call the show appointment method. So then after that, we create up our router and we listen for these routes. And when the applicable route is requested, we're going to call this method and we're going to make that announcement. So let's see if this is working like we would hope. Here's our default route where we have hi there from the index page. And then maybe we've set it up so there's a nice list of all of your appointments. And when you click on a single appointment, that's going to direct to hash appointment / and then the ID of that appointment, which you would get from the model. If you're grabbing it from a database, each model in the collection will have its own ID, which corresponds to the ID within the database. So they're going to request appointment /9. Well, once they request that, we're going to run it, and notice that we get showing the appointment. So again, it's really important to me that we go over this path. This route matched within the browser. So we triggered show appointment. Show appointment made an announcement for whoever needed it. Then from our view, somebody needed it. So somebody made a specific request. I want to listen for when you make that announcement that we're ready to show an appointment. And when you do, I'm going to call this method of mine. It doesn't have to be called a show appointment. It can be show. That's fine. It's probably better actually because we're within an appointment view. And when that method is triggered, we're going to show the appointment with the ID of, and that will be passed through. Try it again. Showing the appointment with the ID of 9 or 2. And so here is when you would set up the model. And what you might do is you would have maybe some specific collection. So let's say this is a collection view. I'll update this here. So now we could say maybe something like this.collection, and we would have to pass it in. We're sort of working with pseudocode here. Collection, some collection. Just note that that's going to fail because we haven't created a collection. But you would pass your collection in, and then you would say something like get ID. So we're going to go into the collection, and we're going to grab the model that has an ID of what we pass in. So we'll say var appointment. So then at that point, you fetched the model from your appointments collection that has the necessary ID. And then at that point, you would just load up the necessary view. So you'd say new app.views, and then your single appointment view. You'd pass in your model, and then you might do something like var appointment view. Maybe this would even be abstracted away somewhere else. And then you would say appointment view.render.l, and maybe that would be appended somewhere specifically. So document.append your appointment view.render.l. So granted, we're entirely working with pseudocode here just to focus on the concepts, but hopefully that makes sense. When the show method is triggered, we take the ID from the URI and we grab that model that has that ID. And then now that we have the model or the data, we just need to attach that to a new appointment view and render it, grab the root element that results in it, which would be like a list item that contains all of the details for the appointment, and then you would append that wherever. You would append that to the body, or maybe you would append that to somewhere else. It just depends. So that might have been confusing. If it is, go back and watch again. The main key, though, is that within our router, we're simply firing events. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.